topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hello everyone, it's Arthi with Light Up Your Life, and I'm so happy to be with you here for another episode. I hope you are trying to always take care of yourself and be well, and being mindful of your mind, body, and spirit. I know I've been saying this a lot lately. There's just so much happening again in our world, and just to be mindful of taking rest and reprieve as needed. I know I'm a running record, but it's important. And I just want to remind you, even a few moments of just closing your eyes in the middle of your day for a few seconds, few minutes, just to close your eyes is rest and reprieve that often our systems need, and extremely important during these trying times. Alrighty, everyone, we have a special guest today, and I'm so excited because she is also in the work of energy work and energy healing. And she adds a twist to something that's hugely important when we think about life, about finances and monetary value. And she brings this awesome way of looking at energy and energy work with finances. And her name is Dawna Campbell, and she actually is a well-acclaimed international author, as well as running a wonderful organization. And I want to make sure I get it right. So, a wonderful organization called the Healing Heart Institute. And if I mispronounce it, I will ask her to correct me. The name of her book is called Financially Fit, and we'll be actually exploring that a little bit today, because I really found a lot of things that struck to me that I think would be hugely important, that I'm sure you also will as well. And Donna works with clients from all over the world, and is just such a wonderful spirit, and I think you will feel that magnetic pull when we talk to her today. So welcome, Donna, to our show.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me here. It is a pleasure.
It's great to have you. Donna, can I ask you, first of all, where are you located?
I live in Big Fork, Montana, so it's a little town of about 4,000 people.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, I'm pretty close to the Canadian border up here, but we're by the lake and the mountains, and it's just beautiful. It's full of nature and full of life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, we definitely, for grounding purposes, need to be near that pole. Donna, let's start. Oh, I didn't even say in your introduction. Let's start off with a bang. It talks about you being a mind whisperer. Can you describe where you live and how you got this title and what it means? And I just love it so much that I can't wait to hear the story.
It was kind of interesting. I had studied with a medicine woman for a period of time, and she taught me various techniques, which I talk about in the Financially Fit book and also teach. But it was through that process that she taught me how to shift and change energy, just not in the physical world, but also in the energy world. And it goes in line with what Nikola Tesla talks about when he says, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. So I took everything that I learned, figured out how to make these shifts, but I saw where it was happening in the people's minds, because we were changing one frequency, which was a feeling or emotion, to another frequency. So we would eliminate anger or frustration or depression or anxiety and put in the qualities, the feelings the person needed. Well, when I explained how this process worked to a friend of mine, they said, I have no idea what you just said, but you're like a mind whisperer because you work on people's minds and brains, just like a dog whisperer or a horse whisperer. I don't know how it works. It just works. It's different and it's done. And so since then, the media heard that word, coined the phrase, attached it to me. And that's why I'm known as the mind whisperer in the world, because we have this ability to make and facilitate that change. So not only can I do it for you, with you, but I also teach how to do it.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I read that and I was like, I definitely have to start by asking that question. Well, I didn't know when it was coming, but anyways, just the fact that that's such a great, and I love that you're talking about that you can help people guide into that world, but then you can also help do it for them. And I love that modality because oftentimes our clients need different varying approaches of how we help hold alongside and hold that space with them. So that's awesome. So Donna, can you talk about first of all, our title of our talk that I just spoke, it was about keeping the heart in everything. But I also want to remind our audience today, we will be focusing a little bit also on this topic that always is a big piece for people is finances and money, because money is energy. And you talk about that a lot in this book. But before we go there, can you just talk about your background because you do have a finance background when your previous work career and all. And so if you'll just share your journey in getting to where you are.
Yes, absolutely. I was so passionate when I was little about helping other people have opportunities for themselves and their children because I didn't have them. And it all had to do around money because I grew up near the poverty line in Silicon Valley, that I chose to become a financial advisor because that seemed like the natural course and the natural direction. And after a decade, it was during that time I was responsible for $500 million of other people's money. And that amount in the corporate world with money, and the financial world is a very angry and corporate environment, broke down my health. And I spent 2 years with Western medicine trying to understand what was wrong with me. And after 2 years, they couldn't determine. So I sought out a natural healer. And that was when I found out I couldn't digest food. So if I'm not digesting food, I wasn't digesting life. I wasn't digesting the nutrients that my body needed. And I remember her saying to me, the natural healer, that there was something in the outside world that I couldn't digest either, but it will just surface and come to light when it was time. Well, a few months later, what surfaced was the infidelity of my marriage and the amount of anger I was holding on to that was completely hidden to me because I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was. So then I left my marriage and moved to an ashram, which is a spiritual living community, for a year to study brainwave patterns and meditation and physics and science and all of the different components, because I knew those two things, relationships and my health, had me in common. And when I left after the year, I went to go back to the financial services world, and nobody was hiring because it was the global recession. So I hit the third category of being financially devastated. And all of these things happened within a 4 to a 5 year time period. So those are the three areas people want change in internationally. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It's either something related to health, wealth, or relationships. And when I sat with that in meditation, I realized people are really wanting a life of happiness, prosperity, and love. So this first book, Financially Fit, is the wealth category of all the things that I've learned over the last 25 years, while I'm working on, of course, the next book, which will be on relationships. So,
I love this series.
The other, it was my own journey of those three things. Yes.
I just love how succinctly you put it. It is money, relationships, right? You do look at how the effect of everything happens in threes. I see threes and sevens a lot in the world if you ever look carefully.
Mm-hmm. What's really fascinating is when I'm working with a client or I use somebody for a demonstration in a live presentation, and I ask them, what is something you want to change? They always say, my money or my finances, because I want a little bit more. And then I ask and uncover why. And it goes back to a relationship or a lifestyle. It's for my family. I want this with my children. I want to be able to go on vacation with them and spend time with them. So it's all about time with family or a relationship. And when you get done a few minutes later, they're like, is that why I had this with my thyroid? It goes to health. And it's like, yes. So they're all interconnected. They're never separate. And that's the point that I want to share, because we might think they're separate, but the universe sees everything as the all. So it's all interconnected, all three of those.
Yes, always. And so, yes, I'm glad you talk about that health piece, the financial piece, and the relational, and how it does. It's all there. Mm-hmm. So true. And as we look at the wellness model and wellness and everything, they're all, and the web is interconnected. I think we can't deny the fact that we now are empowering others with this knowledge to know that they're all interconnected. Yeah. So Donna, when you share your story of going to root cause, because you figured out a lot of your root cause on what was causing you, in a way you have physical pain, you have emotional pain, mm-hmm. and it gets lodged in our body, right? When we think about what happens. And so, can you share how it was, that ashram experience with us, and where it was, and what did it mean for you to have that space where I imagine you were working through your pain in a different kind of setting that way, right? Of course, not enough.
Absolutely. I was in the United States. I did stay here. It was through Ananda, and I was over in the Portland area, and I lived there. And we did have the freedom to go and live our life how we wanted, but the community always went together, and we would have our weekly dinners, and then we had our worship times at the temple, and my children went to the school. So even though they were really young, they got a really good, strong foundation of living a very mindful type life as well, because we would start off our day with yoga and meditation, and then, just gaining the skill set. So it gave us a good, strong foundation. But while my children were at school, I worked on myself in various different ways. And yes, I was processing a lot of my own pain. I went from the corporate world, where there was all of this demand on my time 24/7. I remember making it home, trying to take care of my children. My house phone would ring, and I would answer it as if I was still at the office, because it was a 24/7 job. And then to have a lifestyle on top of that, it just didn't always work for me. And I went from that to, I know absolutely nobody, and I'm by myself, and I have no one to talk to. So I got really good and grounded with who I was. And that was the first time I'd ever really been alone. Now, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely, but I was alone, and I was okay with it. And I got so good at being alone that when I moved back to where I started in Idaho, that when I was around people and people I knew, was like, wow, gosh, I don't know if I can do this. I'd much rather go be alone. I had to reintegrate back into society, because I got really good at knowing who I am, my authentic self, and what is important to me, what is not important to me, how I want to live my life, and then taking that and trying to blend it back with other people. That was a challenge.
I can imagine. Once you do get the chance to kind of go inward, you do, like, use the word reintegrate.
Yes.
Yeah, you do reintegrate. What an awesome, I just love the fact that you also expose your children to a different way of living. I think that's important. I think our children today need a way. This generation is already there with meditation and mindfulness, that's being incorporated in schools, and what we're introducing to them. And I feel like they get a chance to go inward quicker, which means a little bit more don't you feel like they have a little bit more time to really get to their life purpose?
They do. And what was so fascinating about that, because after we left that experience, and they went back to public school, because they were in the private school with the ashram, I remember them coming to me and going, Mom, we were raised completely different, weren't we? It's like, yes, you were. And they would see the behaviors of other children or teachers, and they're like, oh my goodness, because they had that foundation, and they knew how to think for themselves, how to empower themselves. They did everything, within them. I didn't when people say, oh, the teenage years and you have problems, I didn't have any problems at all because they already knew the answer because they were trained in how to think it through to be empowered. And that was probably the best gift that they could have ever received in life.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Those years when the empowerment needs to come from within, we're so used to as adults, even using those years to make it. Yeah. So that power differential becomes that's exactly what those years are about, a power differential and control.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to say that it was not the case because of this, oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
So Donna, can you share? So first of all, oh my gosh, I apologize. Usually, gotta love technology. So Donna, can you share what it has been to talk about being heart-centered, heart-focused, and what does that mean, or where did that come from? Because some people listening may not even know about the chakras and their energy centers, but how you founded your organization, and just how is that heart such a big part of everything that you do?
Well, what was really fascinating for me was that when I moved out of the ashram and I went back to where I started in Idaho, I had made a promise that because I couldn't get work in the financial services industry and that I wasn't going back to a very harsh relationship that turned into domestic violence, that I would commit myself to being a healer and live this other lifestyle and help as many people as I could if myself and my children were kept safe. And I remember when I got to Idaho Falls, I went, oh, okay, I need to start my business now because I made a promise and now I have to fulfill it. And I wrote down 5 names randomly that came to me. They were all similar, and I left them on a piece of paper. And a couple weeks later, I pulled it out and I went, oh, my business name is The Healing Heart. Okay, why? Well, I was shown that all healing takes place in the heart area. And we think with our mind, but we feel with our heart. And when the feelings are not in alignment with what we're thinking, then when we speak, the throat is the bridge. So when we speak, we don't know, are we going to speak how we feel or are we going to speak how we think? And those two things might be at odds together. And this is what I find fascinating, even in the financial world, is we'll say things like, I want to be rich and abundant, and we're thinking that, but we're feeling, I am not worthy and I don't deserve this and I'm in lack. So when you speak, what are you going to speak what you think or speak what you feel? Well, the universe feels what you are feeling and returns it back to you through the law of magnetism. Not necessarily your thought. Your thought is only 10%. The feeling energy is 90%, and that's that hidden energy in the subconscious. So it's always going to return what is stronger. So healing heart-centeredness is about aligning how you feel with how you truly think, making it 100%. And when that happens, you have heart-mind coherence. And when you speak, your word is your command, and it comes back to you 100% of the time because it's law. It's natural law. It's universal law. And the reason why, people say with the law of attraction, your thoughts create your reality. Yes, but there's an energy or a frequency behind the thought that is giving it the energy to come into existence. And if it's not in alignment with what you're asking for, you're going to get what you feel, not what you're asking for. So heart-centeredness, it's about being and doing good things in the world, wanting the world a better place, being of service, having gratitude, living in virtues. And that's where the healing takes place, to make everything go into an alignment. And that's what I've been shown for the last 12 years.
Oh my gosh, so amazing. I just think it's so humbling to know how succinctly you just put, for those who do know what the chakras are, people do pronounce them chakras, but it is chakras, for originally a Sanskrit word, but you just succinctly put how it works. Like, I just love that you're reminding me of energy points and how the alignment in our body happens and how much of it is, like you said, the heart is that bridge between we can talk about that in a minute, but you say it in your book, yes, how you break it down and simplify. And I just think it's wonderful, because that's what I feel like is missing, is when we have this wealth of knowledge that we now all have, but we need to make it accessible. And you really do that.
Mhm.
So I really with my gratitude for doing that. So can you share, when you talk about the 7 chakras as you mentioned all of them, can you talk about the lower set versus the higher set, and what does that mean in terms of when you were bringing up financially fit?
Mhm. Oftentimes, the lower 3 chakras, there's the root chakra, which is at the base of your spine or your perineum. So when you sit down, that's your root chakra. Your sacral is at the belly button-ish area, and then the solar plexus, sun center, is here in your stomach. And the lower 3 chakras are really your earth connection because they're the bottom half of you and they connect you to the earth. The top 3 chakras, the throat, the third eye, and the crown, is our spiritual connection because it's the top part of us. And the heart is at the center of the two, connecting the earth and the spirit together for you. And the heart, when it's in perfect harmony, will resonate to a frequency of 528, which is perfect, divine, raw, unconditional love, but also the miracle healing tone. And so when it's in perfect vibrational alignment, it's a conduit and a bridge so that everything in the physical world also is in the energy world. And the energy world is in the physical world as well. And so the heart, you always have to cross that bridge to get to the energy levels, to the spirit realm, to bring everything into existence. So energy runs both ways in the body. And in the spirit world here, we're in a formless energy. But when we're in that formless energy and we cross through the bridge, we can bring it into form, into the earth world and into the earth plane. And that's how it works with our inventions. When you think about Albert Einstein or Nikola Tesla, some of the other great inventors of our time, they had an idea and a thought. They crossed that bridge and brought it into form. Thomas Edison, we have electricity because of all of this. We have computers, we have technology, we have all of these things that we get to utilize today because they were in that coherence and they would work through the idea and figure out how to bring it into form here into the earth. So, and then, of course, we can take our earth plane, cross the bridge, and then go back up and connect up to spirit as well. And pick a topic that's the pathway energetically, because energy is running up and down the body electrically. But because of our chakras, what's happening is that it's moving out of our body outwardly and back in magnetically, attracting to us the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we're having. So we're electric magnetic beings, and when you put that frequency all together, you get the aura or the energy field of the person, which is why that when you're walking into a store, who to walk by, oh, I don't want to walk by that person, I naturally go around them. Or if you're walking down the hallway to an office meeting, if it's a great meeting and everyone made their benchmarks, or everyone's in trouble because you weren't able to answer to Wall Street. It's everything in the energy field. And it happens so fast and on a subconscious level. Everybody reads it. It's a very intuitive process. It's just that not everyone has the recognition or awareness of that happening.
Yes. And you bring up intuition. How long do you feel like when you can trace back your roots, where do you feel like you've really realized how powerful your intuition has played a role in your own life?
For me, it went back to my childhood. I remember things when I was 2 and 3 at the time of my intuitive responses. I remember once my mom was telling me a dream she had about me, and I looked at her and I told her what the end of the dream was. I was about 4 at the time, and she just looked at me completely shocked because there was no way I would have known the ending of her dream, but I did. And so she, from that point forward, tried to suppress a lot of that within me, like a lot of people. And over time, it did. And I went the worldly ways because you want to make your parents proud of you and you want to please them. And there was just a day that I just started going back to it just naturally gravitates back, and spirit or the energy will always pull you and put you back onto your path and correct. So for me, intuitively, it happened when I was really young. And then there's a chunk of time that I was pretty well suppressed in it. And when it came flooding back, That was when my whole world crashed those 4 to 5 years, because it was a huge correction to get me to today.
Yeah. We talk about pain points, right, Donna, in life and in your work too, and we all have a rock bottom. Everybody's looks different, but I do think I have decided for myself that everybody has a rock bottom.
Yes.
You can't always figure out what it is sometimes, because you do have little stones that, but then the one that really rocks your world, but then where your true transformation of I think that vibrational frequency and all, the more and more I talk to people, the more and more I have seen people follow their passion and their real authentic self, that it took some act of coming through that light.
Mm-hmm. Yes, always. And everything in your life is designed to teach you or to put you on that pathway. So you might not see it in the moment, but when you go back and take a look at it, then you can realize that, no, that really got me on my path. Why did I was not able to digest food? Well, that was when I look back, realized I was digesting the emotion of anger. And anger is what broke down my whole digestive tract. And just the little phrases of the other natural healer saying, there's something in your outside life you can't digest. Well, when it surfaced, it was anger. And then I saw the emotion connection to the body. But in the moment when I was going through all of that, I didn't recognize it. But when years later, after I did some training, it was like, oh, that makes perfect sense to why I went through that. And now I can use my own life, my own story as an illustration to help others, because in the moment, I see those mind connections within people, and I can say, well, here's your pattern, here's why. And they go, oh my gosh, you are right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it before. And then that's when they have that instant change every single time.
Oh my gosh, that aha moment for them that comes, which
Mm-hmm.
is so powerful. And you're reminding me, I have used a few episodes just to quickly, we haven't gone a lot into GI health in general, but you're reminding me of that mind gut connection of it. And we really need to start realizing first, whatever you want to call it, first, second brain, mind, gut, whatever. The fact is how they are aligned, because your story definitely shows when that emotion is lodged into our body, in our digestive system, what can happen.
Right. And a lot of it happens in the womb when you're being formed after you're conceived.
Yes.
Because the umbilical cord, you're connected.
Mm-hmm.
And because, from your mom, you are getting fed nutritionally, but every thought, feeling, and emotion she's experiencing on a vibrational level goes straight into the gut. And you also have a DNA connection with your father. And then anywhere your mom goes, or what's going on in the house and the environment, you felt it from the outside world. So all of what we experience really started when you were being formed, and it put the frequency into your cells, and then those cells replicated. And that's what happened. So whatever everyone around you went through, it gave you your blueprint starting pattern before you were even born. And then we get to choose which files we want to feed.
You're reminding me of those precious months of when we're part of the animal kingdom. Animals tend to treat their, that pregnancy period a little different than we do, but how we have to start nurturing that period for our mothers and our families and those essentially those babies, right? Like that fetus to the growing baby. Yeah. Donna, I really wanted to ask you a question. You had used in the book, you have this really awesome meditation that you actually use for finances.
Uh-huh.
But it's not just finances. It's a heart. Right. It's called like creating a beautiful heart meditation.
Yes.
And what I love about it is you actually go through each of the 7 chakras, which can be very difficult to lead in a meditation. Y'all, I can honestly tell you, to do a chakra meditation and to get all 7 is not easy, and you have done it. Mm-hmm. How did you even break it down so beautifully and succinctly into less than a page? It's not even 3. Right. How are you able to break it down?
I wrote that chakra meditation in 2000, let's see, we're in 2021, 2020. So I wrote it last year in 2020. And what I was asked to do was to write a meditation for a group for a global healing movement, because it was right when the pandemic came out. And it was as soon as I returned from Brazil and putting together and teaching some courses. And so I said yes. And I sat down to write, and I saw that because of how the earth is with the chakras and how people are with the chakras, and to move through each of the chakra one by one by one by one. And then what we're doing is we are taking out all of the energy that we were holding on to, the stress, the worry, the frustration, all the things that were going on in the world at the time of the pandemic, but we're also putting in all of the qualities that we wanted with it as well. And so I just saw that as if we went and did this with the chakra meditation, it would put you in perfect alignment every single time. I also utilize the different feelings and emotions that also get associated with the different chakras. So all in all, when I sat down to write that, and it was so profound, and because it was multi-universal, dimensional, everything, it also fits for Financially Fit with the book and creating that beautiful heart, because it's in that heart space that you want to be able to move forward and create from that place of beingness, because we're creating from virtue. It might have taken me an hour or so to sit down and write that meditation. I did record it, so you can find it on my YouTube if you want to listen to it without having to read it. It is recorded that way with music, which I use sulfagal frequencies for that one. I use 528, that frequency, because it is a heart meditation. But yeah, you can just listen, and it'll put you into your own vibrational alignment. So that's how that came about. And but it was so profound, it needed to go into here and into the book, because it puts you in alignment. And when you're in that alignment, you have that ability to take your manifestations and create them into the physical world.
Oh my gosh. I love you keep bringing up 528. Because a lot of people understand frequency and healing vibe, but we still are not in that zone yet where we have to do the match in order for the healing to happen. I'm sorry, what I consider, this is my own opinion, everyone, but authentic, true healing to get to that root. So for you to bring up the vibrational frequency and talking about what frequency, vibration, and magnetic energy, you are bringing up science to people who can really, if they're listening and who are scientists, this is all energy science is for real, right? It is for real.
It is. It's backed by physics. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a little hobby of mine, and this is what I absolutely love to do. Mm-hmm. I love reading physics books, but when I read the physics books, what I'm doing is I'm writing in my book and in the margins how to take the physics laws and apply them to the energy spiritual being. And I love it. So physics to me is like poetry, because I see it from a spiritual point of view versus the physical world. So I can sit here and we can talk about Newton's 3 laws of motion, but how it applies physically and how to make those changes if we want. It gets a little technical, but people are like, I don't know how you do that.
Oh my God, Donna, that's amazing.
Right? But it's true. It's all backed by physics, everything.
Well, I'm really glad you're bringing that up, because physics was this, when we talk about metaphysical, when we're bringing up what these, because I sucked at physics. So I was so bad at that, but now I know I was meant to look at it through the metaphysical lens more than for me, for physics. But for you to do the breakdown of using this wonderful exact science and then breaking it down to what it was designed, right? All of science was designed for humans to truly be able to make meaning and purpose, which is what's happening when you do these breakdowns. That's so great. And I really want to say that I felt putting that in this book about being financially fit can really speak to people about how everything is about left and right side of the brain too, right? Where you're bringing up the idea of this heart and this mind and the connection of all of it.
Yes. And we touch onto some of that too when we talk about manifesting and creating about halfway through the book in the pain pleasure cycle, because there's the left brain action oriented, let's put this out into the world, but then there's the right brain intuitive, get the idea and inspiration. So when you get the idea and inspiration, it's really manifesting. But when you put it out into the world to bring it into form, you're in an act of creation. And it uses different hemispheres in the sides of the brain, and how that works, not only individually with each person, regardless of your gender, but then if you go into a relationship, how does that work with somebody of the same gender or the opposite gender? And it all depends on if you have a masculine or a feminine brain, regardless of your gender.
Totally.
But we all have those creation qualities.
Oh my gosh, Donna, I'm helping to put together a corporate wellness program, and I just I'm gonna be like, okay, book club time.
Let's do it.
So, okay, tell us. There's one phrase in here that really spoke, and I want you to elaborate on this prosperity paradox.
Uh-huh.
That concept, because when I read it, I was like, prosperity paradox. Okay, it is a paradox to think about how we have this dichotomous pair of wanting to be prosperous, but then, like you said, the alignment can be off on how we want to reach it. For instance, you sharing that you were in the financial world, corporate America, and you realize it wasn't the right fit. But can you bring up what prosperity paradox actually means, what it means, and what does it look like? What does it look like?
So what I find really interesting is that, and what prompted me to write Financially Fit, was that when I was hearing my clients talk, and they would get to the root of what was going on, and they were like, well, in my event, here's my story, and I just didn't feel like I was worthy, or that I was enough, or that I was appreciated. And those were things that they needed as young children to feel. And it clicked one day that those were the exact same words that we were using in the financial services world. Here's your net worth, your portfolio value is, and, your assets appreciated. And do you have enough money to fund XYZ goal? And if you didn't have enough money on the outside, you may not have felt like you were enough on the inside. And so to the universe, we were using the exact same words, but with different intention and different meanings, so we thought. But it became a lot of paradoxical, because what we were thinking and what we were saying in one context wasn't how we thought and felt about ourselves on the inside. And if you did feel like you were enough and that you were worthy and that you were valued, you always had that on the outside world, and your money supply would always increase along the way. But if you didn't have those qualities on the inside, the energy version of money on the outside of you didn't increase either. So I just found it really interesting how we are energy beings. Money is an outside form of energy, but yet we were allowing things on the outside to influence how we felt on the inside, versus allowing ourselves to be happy on the inside and taking who we are on the inside to influence the outside world. So it's an inside out philosophy in there, versus allowing everything to be controlled of who we are on the inside by outside forces.
Which isn't going to work, as we well know.
No.
As much as we are so craving for this money, power, like all the status, whatever you want to call it, it's just not going to work. We have tried it time and time again if you look at it. And then you ask the most powerful beings, who are considered the most wealthiest beings, and you find out their true story, and you realize, where is their happiness quotient really at?
Yes.
Then people realize the humbleness of how you're right, inside out. Where are you feeling? Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, I'm so glad you're bringing up the words of worth and value, because worth and value are the two most critical points when we talk about clients. What do you value, right? I had last week a healing mindset coach, and she works with cancer patients. And then in that moment, and chronic illness, she said one of the first questions she evaluates is, what do you value? Value, right? And value is also monetarily. We're always looking at the value of that. Mm-hmm. So for you to make that connection and say, and then worth, net worth versus how am I? So Thank you
And
so much for that enlightening piece of how we use vocabulary and how powerful words are and what that frequency means to our system.
right, and those words, the perspective of it is going to be completely different based on the individual. I know somebody who is a multimillionaire, and we were sitting down and we were looking at um, it was like a focus band. It's a thing that you put on to measure your brainwave patterns, and the cost of it was $500. And I remember the person who's a multimillionaire going, "Wow, $500, that's a lot of money for this device." And I'm thinking, from my point of view, going, "This is a bargain. How many?" So it all has to do with mindset and perception, because I know the different machines can be several $1,000s, and I'm thinking $500 is a pretty good thing. And they're like, no, that's way too much.
Yes,
And it was all different points of view, and it didn't have anything to do with
absolutely.
our personal money supply. It had to do with our perception as
Yes,
well. So
that-
value is going to be based on your perception of what is valuable.
absolutely. That perception concept always coming back to our what do they say? Is it 90%? I can't remember the exact 90% of what we perceive as our reality, right? What we
That's that subconscious, yes.
yeah. Thank you for bringing up that example, because you're right. What you value in terms of, oh, that's the steal of a deal, and what this individual who, where maybe in his world where you would have seen something technology based, you would have thought that's too. It's all perspective,
All
totally.
perspective.
Oh my gosh. Can you also bring up your discover, release, transform concept a little bit? I know it's a really in-depth conversation to have like for a few minutes, but can you just share a little bit of what that might look like?
So a lot of times people ask about the process of what I do when I'm working with someone. And your subconscious records everything from the moment that you were born to the day that you exit this earth. And it's constantly assigning feelings and emotions to the different events. Our problem is we're only aware of that process happening 10% of the time. So the other 90%, we don't necessarily always know the feelings and the emotions that got associated to the event. Well, what I have done is come up, when we talk about the discover, release, and transform, we can call it DIRT for short. In that is that we can discover what our initial emotion is to whatever you want to change. So I want to create more money. Okay. How do you feel not having more money right now? Well, that's going to give us the initial emotional feeling, and that is frustration. We can find where it's located at in the body, and then we use that as an access point to the subconscious to understand what happened in the context of the original events. And then it might be that, well, my parents were getting divorced. I was about 9. I was the only child. They were fighting over me. It was really frustrating for me. Well, the more got divided up, and so it created frustration. They were comfortable, but they didn't have the extra. And this person's trying to create the extra. So then what we can do is release that energy of frustration, and then we transform it at that point to the energy frequency that the person needed. So I also ask questions like, well, what did you need to feel in that moment if your parents didn't do this? And how would you feel if you had more money? And they might say a sense of pride and respect for my family. So then what we do is I transform that energy of frustration and teach the brain to create the hormone chemical of pride and respect. And that happens in the synapse between the two neurons in the brain, and it will make a chemical flush immediately through the body so the person feels it in the moment. So you can rub an onion on the bottom of your foot, and in a few moments, you're going to taste it in your mouth. So that's how fast our emotions and our energy is running through our body. So the second that that transforms and takes place, and we go back and look at the originating event, well, my parents still got divorced. That didn't change. But what happened was I'm actually happy and I'm riding my bicycle down the street with my friends, which also happened. Their awareness and their energy got stuck on frustration. So it only created that as a pattern. So when that transformed, that person is able to create the more and the extra today because they're not stuck in frustration. So it's about discovering how we originally feel, where it's located, the events that it got associated with, releasing it, and then how to transform it to a higher energy. And so that's a lot of the work that I do with clients, because I'm sharing in a space with them. I can send that energy, the frequencies for that transformation, and do the work for you as you, because of how physics does work.
Right. Oh my gosh, so amazing. I love how, Donna, I always talk about, as complex as life seems, it's also very simple. And you're describing this moment of what you do, of this simplicity about the healing piece to it can really be powerful and magnetic. Once we get back to that root, that's why I love functional medicine, because we do, everything's lodged. I love, traditional Chinese medicine and the qi, getting to the where's that stagnant emotion line? What is it? Where is it? What can we do? And you beautifully stated this through this dirt method.
Yes.
Which is all about dirt grounding. I just love it so much. It's all about
discover, DI, release and transform.
Oh my gosh. So Donna, talk to us about, the things that you can talk about, because I know when there's some things you always have to keep a little under wraps before they get released. But talk to us about some of your programs you already have established, B, some of the things that you are upcoming before we wrap it up.
Okay. So I do teach the Financially Fit program. And in that, I have dates set up. So they're all on the website, and I'll be adding more dates into the future if you want to go through the program and learn how to do this for yourself as well. There's a 2-day program. And then from there, I'll be offering a 6-week program for the people that want to dive deeper into that. In addition to this, new things that are coming up, I already mentioned earlier, I'm going to be writing a book on relationships, utilizing the same method, but the different energies that go with relationships, because the qualities are a little bit different in that. And then I'll be writing the programs that for next year that will come out for the relationship side. But something that's fun and that's new and that's exciting is that I get to go back out onto the live stage to start sharing and speaking these different truths. And I have a program where I'll be speaking about gaining infinite prosperity, utilizing and sharing these different techniques and the story. And then from there, being in front of people to do that. And I will also be emceeing different live events coming up with other speakers on similar topics and maybe even different topics as well. So I'll be starting at the end here in a couple of weeks, really, traveling and doing that on top of writing the next book, teaching the programs, and then sharing with beautiful people like you.
Oh, it's so amazing, Donna. Last question for you. What are your parting thoughts for our audience?
I'm going to share the mantra that I wrote years ago, which got me through all of my hard times. And it's one that I still think about and utilize almost on a daily basis today. And it is: trust and you will see, believe and you will know, have faith, all is well, follow your heart and spirit will lead you.
Oh gosh, love it so much. Donna, thank you for the precious gift of your time today, for talking about so many different interweave. All it does is remind us of our holistic beings.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode. And as Donna reminded us today, it's all about the heart. And so remember, speak from the heart, love from the heart, and do what's meant for you through the heart. And we will see you next week. Have a good one.